Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Suzerain. So, in the last episode, at the end of the last episode, we managed to finally go ahead and start some economic projects in the whole sword area, specifically Conriot. And we also got a call from Marcel Coranti. He wants us to strike a deal so he can turn around and get control of the Lothberg group, which I have no problems with because Walter Tusk is a douche. So let's just go ahead and establish that. Walter Tusk is a douche, and he's going to be problematic in the long run, I think. He has an old way of thinking, and I don't like it. So yeah, I definitely want his ass gone. So don't mind necessarily getting rid of him. Also, I kind of freaked out at the end of the last episode because I thought that my recording had messed up, and I was going to have to skip the entirety of the last episode. So that's always nice. But anywho, we're about to get we're finna have a nice little meeting with Lucien Galad. And if this is the meeting that I think about, yeah. So let's get to it. Lucien scheduled some time with me to discuss the potential political repercussions of the upcoming economy meeting. He arrived on time as usual and took his seat right across from me. Good morning, Mr. President. Lucien had dark circles below his eyes. The plethora of political developments must have been weighing even on a workaholic like him. You look a bit tired. Are you getting enough sleep? I'm trying to, sir. Don't push yourself too much. I'll try not to. I must say, you don't look much better. I looked at myself in a small hand mirror. Similar circles were beneath my eyes as well. I booked some of your time to pre-plan for today's meeting at the Ministry of Economy. I want to give you a short status update. As you know, I've been lobbying the old guard extensively after the constitutional review process began to ensure we don't end up in a weakened position. My efforts to ensure a court rejection for the legal arguments put forward by Mr. Richter are continuing. A very important piece in succeeding will be this upcoming economy meeting. It is well known that the old guard wants many of these large companies to be nationalized. If we do that, our chances of the court rejecting Mr. Richter will increase. I won't let the old guards decide the future of our country in any way. While I agree, it doesn't change the fact that if they accept Mr. Richter's plea, we might be done for. We need to be cautious. Any grand plans about the economy also heavily influence our political standing. We would be changing our relationship with the old guards, the oligarchs, and the opposition. As you know, this meeting will give you the opportunity to alter the ownership of the Big Four, the largest corporations in all of Swordland. We can start the process of nationalization or privatization, or we can just keep the status quo. Again, I remind you that any changes will tip an already fragile balance. I personally think we should stay out of this and keep things as they are. There's no need to make new political enemies at this stage in our term. But ultimately, the decision is yours. What are you leaning towards? What should we move forward? I want to move towards privatizing these companies. So yeah, we're going to be going against the old guard. So that's going to be a problem. I think the impeachment is a process. I won't instantly lose or anything like that, or it won't instantly be a game over, but we'll see. I have to ask, why? What is your intention? Let me see. If we want to improve our relation with the West, we need to privatize our economy. It's true, Lesbia would look very favorably on such changes in the upcoming negotiations. Arcasia would see it as a positive step towards membership in the ATO. One thing to remember is that since you've been transparent about promoting a market economy, privatization will not cost us much support. Lucien took note of this in his notebook. I received a report from the Ministry of Economy that may impact your decision. Unfortunately, we have missed our government budget targets for the current quarter. The plan to change the ownership of important assets could help us generate much needed resources to further improve economic development before the next election. It's just something to consider, as is our relationship with the oligarchs. We need to remember that they only care about their own profits. Unfortunately, we aren't on good terms with them. This situation has been obstructing some of our efforts with the economic recovery. However, if we implement a privatization plan, they would surely be delighted. Still, we need to make sure that we don't go overboard with it. If we do, we might lose our base both in the USP and among the people. I do find that wording very interesting because, we've pretty much always done everything that they wanted. I mean, the only different thing that I did here was I gave the contractor towards holding, but other than that, I mean, well, there was the emergency decree thing, so that might be negative, but meh. To save our country from recession, privatization is a must. As I mentioned, we need to be careful. Some of my connections indicate that there seems to be a contest for leadership in the Lothberg group. It looks like Marcel Caronte is making moves to become the key figure. Caronte probably wants his father's seat at the head of the group, and Tusk doesn't want to let it go. It's a significant power struggle considering these are the heads of Swordland's two largest private corporations. If we privatize our state-owned companies, the Swordish State Corporation and the Down Mining Group, it could result in the balance tipping to one side. They would fight over buying up shares and cause chaos. Since you've already made the decision to privatize, you need to be decisive in your follow-up actions. Did Marcel or Tusk contact you? You know, I'm starting to wonder about you, Lucian. I received the call from Marcel. What did he ask? He wanted to make a deal to leave HOS untouched. And then, I said I'd think about it. Very well. Was that all he wanted? He also wants to give me the shares, give him the shares from the privatization to lower Tusk's influence. As I expected, this internal conflict among the oligarchs puts us in an interesting position. Our relationship with Walter Tusk has been very strong so far, and we have the backing of the oligarchs thanks to that. You just said we didn't! Very well then, it's almost time. I will inform Mr. Hole of your decision, and he will make the necessary preparations to formulate a plan. I must get back to work now. See you at the next meeting. Thank you for your time, sir. Lucian got up from his chair and left the office. Okay, so that wasn't the meeting I thought it was going to be. I think that meeting comes a little bit later on in the game. Just a little bit later. Okay, the Voxland Navy active in the Marquian Sea, so that's going to be a problem that we're going to have to address in the future. We have two news reports, one from the Whole Sword Post and one from Geopolitical. Swordish Arcasian joint drills at Urwi Air Base, so we're doing that. It's always good. Keep the military ready. Tension keeps rising in the Marquian Sea, so yeah, that's basically the report that we just saw here a second ago. Alright, back to Whole Sword. Ownership changes of major corporations. So, this is a biggie here. Lucian and I arrived at the Ministry of Economy. Assistants took our coats and showed us into the meeting room where Simon, Edith, Gus, and Mikhail were waiting. As soon as I entered, their chatter stopped and they stood up. After a few pleasantries, everyone but Simon took their seats. He opened his briefcase, produced a folder, and proceeded to go over some of the documents. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Ministry of Economy. Without further ado, we are of course here today to discuss our economic shift towards privatization. Mikhail and Edith exchanged smiles. Mr. President, before you arrived, Mikhail and Edith were expressing their delight at your decision to go down this path. Wonderful news, I'd say. I'm glad we're staying firmly on the path to a market economy. That was certainly the right decision. It will boost our economy, put more money in circulation, and give the government much needed funds. It's a win-win situation for sure. I could be a douche about this. I'm glad we're on the same page. Certainly. Simon handed me and everyone else in the room two neat stacks of documents. Let's move on to how we can go about implementing a privatization plan. Please turn to page 6. Page 6. The title was Swordish State Corporation. Oh yeah. As you can see on the document, the first company up for discussion is the Swordish State Corporation. The Swordish State Corporation, or SSC for short, has been around for over half a century. Most recently, they have been handling a wide range of state construction projects. In their portfolio, they have government buildings, various infrastructure projects, state libraries, embassies, basically anything government related. Privatizing a company like this would certainly increase the government's budget. That, of course, would result in lots of opportunities for us to provide for our citizens. The funds could also be used to boost our popularity, especially with the election approaching, not to mention the various other areas in which we can and should spend money. However, there is one catch. The conservative majority of the USP would not like this decision at all. For them, these state companies are part and parcel of Swordish identity. If we privatize these companies entirely and sell too many shares in them, it will have consequences for us in the assembly. Oh boy, I'm just making an enemy of everybody. Okay, I already know this. Let's move on to the next option. Very well, please turn to page 26. Nidam Mining Group. It is one of the largest mining corporations in eastern Marcopa, let alone Swordland. They call themselves the leaders of the world in coal. They certainly have enough evidence to back that up. Perhaps they are not as large as SSC, but we still have a lot to gain if Nidam Mining is privatized. I fully support privatization of this company to any extent. Certainly a good option to gain enough capital to end the recession once and for all. I have contacts in Nidam. It is one of the most valuable corporations of the last decade. I can vouch for that. I have personal experience with the company myself. It would be a great addition to any portfolio. Alright, I've already decided on what I need to do. Sounds good. Let's go over the document once again then. I read all of Simon's documents once more, then flipped to the last page. It was time to make some decisions. Alright, so as you can see, it is a fully state corporation, both of these in this case, and you have a bit of a slider. You can kind of decide how you want to do it. You want to have it fully state owned, majority state owned, minority state owned, or fully privatized. So I think, now I have said before I want to go with a full privatization plan, and I think I will go to a minority state owned in both of these cases. I don't want to go too far because of the support from the conservatives. I don't want to piss them off a little too much. So yeah, I'll go to a minority state. Before, I think I turned around and I think previously I turned around and I completely privatized both of these. So yeah, actually Swordish State, you can be completely privatized because they were kind of shit. In one playthrough I had, they had a lot of problems, so they kind of need to be privatized. Whereas like Nidam, maybe not so much. So, and there's the money too. And if I keep it in the middle, oh, there is no middle. Oh, I always have two minds about these things. So, ooh. And plus I'll need to know like how much of this, because I'm guessing that's like 25%. We have a 25% stake in both of these. And at the same time, if it's fully state owned and I can't do anything with it, if it's majority state owned, that'll be a problem. It would allow Caranti to go ahead and buy shares in it, but yeah. Alright, I think I'm going to go ahead and do minority state owned for both of these. I don't want to go fully privatized. I'll just go partially, well, almost completely privatized. So, and then I'll have to go ahead and decide what to do about Caranti. I'm going to give him the power, but still. You're about to make changes to the ownership of prominent companies in Swordland. Are you sure about your decision? Yep. I signed the document altering the ownership of the Big Four with a flourish. Simon leaned back in his chair. So, this is the path we're taking. I want to thank you, Mr. President. This decision will revitalize our economy. Although I wish we could have proceeded with privatization in a greater capacity, it is a start. Certainly a step in the right direction. Partial privatization will still deal damage to our conservative voter base, but it's nothing we can't handle. I suspect that regardless, we will lose the support of some conservatives in the assembly, but the gains we receive will offset the losses. Alright, hope you're right. Yeah, usually I just the last playthrough I think I did, I went completely all in on it and they were not happy, but I offset that later on with another choice that I turned around and made. Let's see, I will do the best I can. If you'll excuse me, I have to get to work immediately. There's much to be done. Lucien packed up his bag and started making his way to the entrance. That will be it for today then. I know everyone has very busy schedules. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Simon. My pleasure. I put the documents in my suitcase and left the room with Lucian. Alrighty, so as you can see, we have a nice little surplus in the budget that we can use. That's going to be very helpful. Hopefully we can help our economic development, because Jesus Christ, it's terrible right now. Alright, Unified Education Language Act and a result of the economic direction. So, I will go ahead and sign the Unified Education Language Act because that will help get me some support with the conservatives and such. University Technical Colleges and other, the UELA passes the following into laws. Section 1 enforces that the Educational Institution of Swordish will teach all classes except for foreign languages in the official language of the country, unless they are given specific approval by the Ministry of Education. Universities, technical colleges, and other schools that provide classes in any language other than Swordish will receive a suspension of operations until they apply for the approval process. Section 2 enforces the law through the defunding penalties or total shutdown of schools. Signed. Okay, I'm guessing we're going to have reactions to that at some point. Again, got to appeal to that conservative base, unfortunately. Results of the economic direction. The privatization process had begun, and as I had expected, Swordish 2 most prominent oligarchs wanted to speak to me about it. Lucian showed Marcel Coranti and Walter Tusk into the conference room. The two men sat across the table from me, leaving an empty chair in between them. Good to see you, President. It's been a while. Here, take this, a gift. He brought out a bottle of Earlery Maroon 30-year-old. I heard Peter say that you favor this one. Thanks for the gift. Anytime. Marcel burst out laughing. Oh man, you always think so small. We like the vision to see the bigger picture. Marcel approached me and we shook hands. It's nice to see you, Mr. President. Here, a real gift. He took a set of car keys from his pocket and gave them to me. Come, take a look. I looked out the window, and on the road leading to the palace, I saw a glittering, brand new Randerfini sports car. A car that only the richest of the richest in Swordish could afford. It's yours. Oh, man. Thank you, Marcel. I can't wait to drive it. I knew you would like it. It's really better than a bottle of whiskey. Little boy. Do you think I can't do better? Me, Walter Tusk? Thank you both. Let's begin the meeting. Sounds good. Gentlemen, please take your seats. They sat down. Lucian produced a set of documents from his briefcase. He put on his reading glasses. So, Mr. Tusk, Mr. Coranti, President Rain is about to sell private shares in Swordish's two largest national corporations, and now you're here, showering him with gifts. You're both clearly more skilled at business than you are at subterfuge. So tell us, why do you deserve to claim these shares before they go on the general market? Walter cleared his throat. President, listen, you and I, haven't been on the best of terms lately. But I want to nurture a profitable relationship between us where we both win. These shares are very important to me. If I had them, I could do so much more for Swordish. So much more for you. You haven't even seen what I and my connections are capable of. Do you want to get reelected? No problem. I'll make sure of it. This is my offer to you. I will do whatever it takes to make you president for another term. Doesn't that sound great? What about you, Marcel? He can't do anything. He's not capable enough to... Mr. President asked me, not you. Before you spew those big words, make sure you can actually do it, Walter. Mr. President, first off, Mr. Tusk here is lying about the extent of his influence. True, he might have command over some people in the assembly, but what he is sitting on top of right now was built by my father, Conrad Coranti. I want to be straightforward with you. If you give me the shares, I will topple this old man, which means I will have the same influence he does over the assembly. I can sway them as you like, but that is not all, Mr. President. Don't forget that I have something that gives me an edge over this man and his archaic ways. A powerful tool. Control over the media. I can give you power over both the assembly and the Swordish public. Basically a guaranteed win. He could never ever hope to beat this offer. You little snake. You're 20 years early to be the head of the Lothburg group. I made the group what it is. Perhaps, but Marcel has a point. What is the decision, Mr. President? Yeah, what's it going to be? Walter, I hate you, so of course I'm going to go with Marcel. Marcel leaned forward with anticipation. Let's see. You can either give it to Marcel, you can equally distribute them, or you can give it to Walter, or you can just let it go out into the market and let them decide. So, if I was a true capitalist, I would probably go with that. But Marcel, I need your help. So, hey, there you go. What? Haven't you heard a word of what I said? It's all right, old man. You learned your place today. Thank you for the wise decision, Mr. President. I will arrange a small transfer as thanks. Very well. Here's the paperwork. Lucien put a stack of papers in front of Marcel. He pointed to various sections and pages in the stack of papers. You will need to sign here, here, and here. After the papers were signed, Marcel and Walter stood up. I think we all have very busy schedules. I will take my leave now. See you later, President. I will take my leave as well. The two men packed their belongings and left the meeting room. All right. So my personal wealth is now at 8. Jesus Christ. And I think that's the highest it's actually ever been, if I'm not mistaken. So, but I'm gonna need that later on. I'm definitely gonna need that. The police has launched successful raids. Looks like an armory and it's stored. 2,000 legal firearms and drugs captured. And Rain is determined to end the recession. I really am. I really need this economic development to go up. So yeah, could you help me out with that, people? Really need that. Okay, we have an invitation to a movie premiere. Rumberg whistleblower arrives. Okay. And I still have a negative approval rating. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna need to bump that up. A high-level agent has escaped from Rumberg and seeks refuge in Swordland. And I will go ahead and grant them asylum. A whistleblower from the Rumberg Security Bureau has escaped to Swordland through the crossing in the Stord. Agent Chelston Hailstone has promised to reveal extremely sensitive information about the development of a weapons program. We can give refuge to him and risk antagonizing Rumberg or send him back. Grant him asylum. We need all the information we can. Alright, whistleblower in safe house. Okay. I guess it would also help too, since we gave the police and the military a better budget, so that probably help keep that person protected. I don't want them to get some poison mercury tea or something like that. And Geopolitical has reported on that. Thanks for just, completely putting that out there, though. All right, we have an invitation to the movie premiere. I have been invited to an exclusive preview of Alfred Serbich's new film, The Morning Shall Come. Although I wasn't in much of a movie-going mood, it would have been unpresidential not to attend. With its massive budget and Serbich's directorial cachet, this drama was set to be a milestone for Swordland's burgeoning film scene. Personally, though, I was just looking forward to spending some time with my family. It was a very hot and sunny day as Sergei drove us to the old capital. The film was to be screened in the historic Cinema Anglia de Earlery, the very first cinema in Swordland. I gazed at the vast plains between Hosword and Earlery as we drove on the H1. Sergei had maxed out the air conditioning to keep the Cadilla comfortable. Frank fidgeted with his tie as he stared out the window. Let's see. Worried about the university exams, son? Since when did you care what's happening in my life? Oh, not happy, I see. Oh. You know I'll support you whether you pass or fail those exams. What an honor, Your Highness. Frank, don't talk to your father that way. He's been working so hard for this country. Ignore him and talk to Dana. Excited for the movie, sweetie? Dana nodded happily. Don't worry about me, Papa. You got the whole country to worry about. Yeah, thanks for the reminder. All I'm worried about is whether or not there'll be popcorn. Dana giggled. I sure hope so. Now, no more politics talk. Isn't that right, Monica? Of course. Let's just focus on having a nice time at the movies. Monica folded her arms. We drove on in silence. Okay, what is she pissed about? Sergei rolled down the soundproof glass between us. Sir, we are about to enter orrery. We will be at the cinema in a few minutes. Thank you, Sergei. I took a brief look outside as Sergei rolled the soundproof glass up again. I could see the many towers of orrery rising over what was left of the old city walls. In the distance, there were several planes flying towards the city. As they got closer to us, I saw that they were military planes that looked like Arcasian designs. They were probably headed for our new joint military base. Wasn't your vineyard around here? Monica pointed at the hills on the outskirts of the city. It's not mine, it's ours. She smiled. Sergei knocked on the glass and gestured forward. We were at the main square of orrery, and the historic Cinema Anglia, the Cinema of Angels, was right in front of us. Is this the place? Yeah. It was an old Baroque-style corner building with walls that looked like marble from a distance. There were exquisite ornaments on each side of every window. Sergei pulled the car to the entrance of the building, which was lit by vivid neon stripes in many colors. On the wall next to the entrance, there were painted the words "Stop the Oppression of Blues." Other graffiti next to it read, "Stop the Genocide in Wayland," and "Axis of Evil, Smolak, Rain, Lankia." Come on, let's get out. Sergei opened the door and we exited onto the red carpet. We were just about to enter the building when a journalist managed to block the path. Mr. President, you recently rescinded your emergency declaration. Do you feel that the state has achieved its goal? Let's see. Our enemies are still out there, but we cannot keep living in fear. One more question. Before she could ask anything else, the guards ushered us inside the theater. In contrast with the cinema's Baroque-style exterior, the inside was modern and sleek, with bare walls painted in black, red, and white. The film's cast and crew were already in the foyer, with glasses of champagne in their hands. We approached the crowd and were welcomed by the producers and the event organizers. A man walked up to us with quick steps. Madame, Mr. President, it's so good to see you here. He gently bowed at Monica and shook our hands. It's an honor to meet you. I'm Alfred Serbic. The honor is mine. Well, nice to meet you, Mr. Serbic. My producers told me you had expressed admiration for my work. God dang it. Frank snorted. I glanced at him and he innocently took a sip of his cola. It's very humbling to know that you've been watching and enjoying my movies. If you don't mind my asking, which one was your favorite? This one may be slightly different than my previous work. Let's see what you've made here. Let's see. Resident Carl, that's one. I don't see it on the list here. The Swordish Dream. Okay. Yeah, I can go ahead and oh, so he is Stanley Kubrick. Okay. Yeah, we'll go with Stanley. We'll go with the Swordish Dream. Oh, really? Then you might enjoy this one too. I'll admit, I didn't expect you to be such a cinephile. Frank looked me in the eye and struggled not to laugh. But we take our seats. It's about to start. We entered the screening room. The lights dimmed and the film began. It was a period drama set in the 1870s about a Swordish soldier who pursues a doomed romance with a widowed Bludish farmer during the conquest of Bergia. I wondered briefly whether Serbic was commenting on my own treatment of the Bludish people, but then he had finished filming long before I became president. As the credits roll, I made an early exit to use the men's room. I was washing my hands when I heard an unmistakable voice behind me. So what do you think? Tarkin Soul leaned on his cane. He had aged noticeably since the last time I saw him, his appearance far more frail. Yet beneath it all, I could still sense the raw magnetism that had kept him in power for 20 years. I found the plot questionable, but it certainly looked spectacular. What about yourself? Sentimental pabulum for the employment of housewives only, and for a period piece, the script contained far too many anachronisms. Indubitably. Surprised to see you here, sir. A man's got to get off his island every once in a while, you know. He smiled, but I could see no mirth on his face. And I wanted to check in on how my country has been faring in my absence. Your presence is appreciated, but I've got everything under control. I wouldn't be so sure about that. Why did you end the state of emergency so prematurely? The country still needs to be brought out of recession. This was a distraction. He heaved a sigh. Short-sighted. I tried to warn Hawker about you. Wait, the emergency declaration was your idea? Of course it was. Don't be naive, Anton. How do you think I've been spending my retirement? Tending to my garden? I've got to protect my party and my legacy. Hawker and Garasi understand that. I've always looked up to you. Give me a chance to do my job. You have no idea what it takes to do this job, boy, but you'll find out soon enough. He slipped past me and out the door. Soul's security staff and mine were now clustered outside the washroom, forming a buffer against the large crowd that had gathered. It's Tarkin Soul, I heard someone scream. His guards closed around him and mine around me. By the time the chaos subsided, I was back in the car with my family, and Soul was long gone. Great! So now this bastard has reared his ugly head. So now not only do I have to deal with the old guard in the Supreme Court, I have to deal with Tarkin Soul, who has a lot of political influence. This is going to be problematic. Okay. Let's see, read the report from Dare. Bluish students drop school in protest. That's problematic. Bill signed protest in Bergia. The language bill. So we're starting to get reactions from that. Up here, we have dinner with the family at home. Briefing on the diplomatic strategy. And we have ceremonial duty for the day of dissension. So I think I'll go ahead and do these last few quests, and then after that I'll wrap this up and we will move on in the next video. So starting to make some progress with the budget and such. So that's what's important here. That's what's important. The budget and the economy. Alright, Arc Sanctuary of Destronity Dare. I can't even pronounce the damn religion, and I have ceremonial duties. I really wish I could have just refused to come to this. Morning haze surrounded the city of Dare as the sun dawned on the day of dissension, the holiest day of the Nuriti religion. It celebrated the first message received from God by Saint Das and his 30 disciples. As per tradition, the celebration was held inside the Arch Sanctuary of Destronity, closed to the public eye. This year, however, for the first time ever, it was going to be televised. That was Lucien's idea. As he saw it, granting the people a rare glimpse of the grand ceremony and showing them how seriously their president took this holy event would ease the tension that lingered following my decree to ban the Workers' Party of Bludia. And so we arrived at the largest cathedral in Swordland. A huge crowd gathered around our convoy as our car pulled up to the entrance. This will work out well, trust me, sir. Of course, that's only if the prayer is done completely correctly. Please don't forget the order. First, you will need to grasp the holy scepter with your left hand, then touch the altar with your right. Kneel before the archpriest and wait for him to put the sword on your shoulder. Then touch the sword with the hand you touch the altar with, hand the scepter over to the archpriest, and receive the sword before passing it on to a disciple. I have screwed this up every single time. So I'm going to take a picture of this, and yeah, we're gonna just go ahead and hopefully do it right there. That's kind of a long one. All right, let me go ahead, do that, and okay. All right, I think I got it. Pretty straightforward, isn't it? I didn't understand a word you just said. Just do your best to remember it. We can't afford to lose our religious base over this. You will have to go first. I will come inside later and we will meet up after your part is done. Good luck, sir. Oh, God. I exited the car and was greeted by a chorus of boos. Some people in the crowd began raising signs and chanting in protest of my ban. I ducked my head as the guards quickly ushered me to the grand gates. Again, why would I do this? I should be going to, like, I don't know, a nationalist rally or a military parade or something. Shouldn't be doing this. The Arch Sanctuary was a sight to see. With its towering visage, it cast a shadow over a large portion of the city. I had to crane my neck to see the narrow spires at the top. Just standing next to it made me feel awe and dread in equal measure. As I reached the gates, I spotted my welcoming committee. The archpriest and his disciples were waiting for my arrival. At my approach, they all bowed their heads in respect. The archpriest gave me an infectious smile as he straightened back up. Tall and handsome, in his mid-50s, he was one of the youngest and most popular archpriests in history, and some of his more avid followers even likened him to Saint Dast. He's so important he doesn't have a Wikipedia article. Mr. President, praise God. It is a blessing to see you on our most holy day again. Welcome, welcome. Bow your head before the archpriest. I bowed my head before the archpriest, which triggered a few murmurs of approval from the crowd. The crowd was still booing angrily. The archpriest turned and raised both of his hands, and everyone immediately fell silent. O great people of Swordland, once again we are gathered here to honor the day of dissension. I am indescribably happy to be sharing this moment with you, as well as every blood and sword, old and young, tuning in to their television to watch this holy commemoration. In these times of turmoil, we must unite. By the grace of God, the President is here today to show his will to unify our great country. Stay far from evil, O sons and daughters, for evil hides itself under many disguises such as blasphemy, apostasy, and even alcohol. Be good, my children. Praise God, praise Swordland. He smiled beautifully as the crowd burst into rapturous applause. After it subsided, he turned to me. Shall we move inside for your confession? I probably shouldn't pull the archpriest aside for a photo. My confession? Yes. Just like last year, every man must confess before the holy ceremony starts. Before we went in, the archpriest looked at the crowd and pointed at one man. I turned and followed his finger with my eyes. It was a man holding a picket sign that said, "Stop the religious disharmony bill." As you can see, every man has his faults. So does every president. So does every archpriest, it seems. Let's continue with the ceremony. Very well, Mr. President. He led me through the main hall, which had a stratospheric ceiling and numerous icons lining the walls. We walked up a creaking spiral staircase to the top floor, and finally arrived in front of the confession chamber. Right, this way. He gestured towards a chair in the dark room. The room smelled of old mahogany and gentle candles. The archpriest proceeded to light each and every one of the candles, one for every virtue and vice. I will be right with you. He left the room. A minute later, I heard the sound of a sliding window right next to me. He spoke with a very soft voice. Anton Raines, speak. Speak and confess now before the one God, and may he repent your sins on the most holy day of dissension. Yeah, I was involved with bribery and just all types of bad things. No, I confess that I have been a bad husband. Family is the cornerstone of society. Under the watchful eye of the God, men are required to protect their wives and family. But God created us as complex creatures. At times, conflicts rise among us. Tell me, what was your sin? This is between me and God. I've been neglecting my family due to the stress of my position. Tragedy of neglect happens to all working men that feeds his family. Rejoice. God is kind in the matters of family. Anything else you would like to confess? No, I think that's all. That's all for today. Before God, I thank you for sharing. You are now forgiven before God, Anton Rain. May you never sin again. The sliding window closed, and the archpriest entered the confession chamber. For the confession to end, you must extinguish the candles representing each one of your virtues and vices. With this, the once burning sins connected to you are now smoke and then nothing. Extinguish the candles. One by one, I extinguish the candles. Well done, Mr. President. Let's move on to my quarters before the ceremony. He led me through the 1,000-year-old corridors to his office. The smell of dust and old tomes was in the air, along with the scent of burning incense being prepared for the ceremony. Well then, please have a seat. The wooden chair next to him looked like it might turn to dust at a single touch. I sat down gingerly. It was surprisingly sturdy. Are you ready for the ceremony? I'm a bit nervous. Happens to the best of us. It will be televised after all. He leaned back in his chair comfortably. I wanted to talk to you about something. I realize it has been months since the Benfey Festival, but this is my first chance to bring it up with you. It's about the actions of the First Lady. Oh boy. Here we go. Everybody's a critic and everybody has an opinion, but here we go. As you know, the festival is a holy event. Letting a woman make the opening speech did not sit well with us. We share the same concerns as Mr. Lest. A woman's place is beside her family, not giving public speeches and revealing dresses. Certainly not insulting the important tradition behind such an event. The disgust was apparent on his face. Of course, we cannot ask you to do anything about it. She is your wife, but I just wanted to voice our disapproval of the situation. A woman presiding over such an important religious event. What have we become? I let her do the speech because people like you still exist in Swordland. His face soured and he did not reply. He looked me up and down for a moment. A couple of knocks were heard on the door and a young boy came in. He bowed before the archpriest, then me, before letting us know that the ceremony was about to begin. We made our way downstairs where the ceremony was already in progress. The choir sang angelically as the archpriest took his position beside the altar. When they finished their hymn, an expectant silence fell over the room. It was time for my part. I started my walk, bowed, and approached the altar. Okay, let's see here. What does it say? I need to grasp the holy scepter with the left hand and touch the altar with the right. So grab the scepter with the left hand, touch the holy altar with the right. And let me see. Then I need to kneel before the archpriest and wait for him to put the sword on my shoulder. Kneel before the archpriest. The archpriest laid the sword on my shoulder. Then touch the sword with the hand you touched the altar with. So that was the right. Oh yeah. Touch the sword with the hand that touched the altar. Then I hand the scepter to the archpriest. The archpriest handed me the sword, and now I pass the sword to a disciple, right? I received the sword from the archpriest, and then I pass it on to a disciple. Yes, so I pass the sword on to a disciple. I got up and proceeded to my designated spot next to Lucian. He leaned over and whispered in my ear. Compared to last year, that went surprisingly well, sir. My eyes met the archpriest, and he very slightly nodded. The ceremony went on for another hour and a half. Finally, the noon bells chimed, marking the end of the cathedral service. We left the cathedral to greet the waiting crowd. As I walked outside, I heard scattered boos. A man in a shirt bearing the colors of the bluish flag shouted that I'd only done the ceremony for show. Lucian hadn't been exactly right about my presence easing tensions, it seems. We should go before things get heated. We entered our cars and drove back to our suites in Dare. That is the first time I've ever actually done that right. Okay. Host Sword Post. Rain and Soul meet at Cerbic screening. That's always nice. And we have a new law on education and the Swordish language. So yeah, the unification bill. Alright, in Sworland today, Rain. Our enemies are still out there. And we have the new language bill, a milestone for integration. They're happy with whatever I do. And with the Lechavan Times, the president attends the Day of Dissension. And we have peaceful protests now. And we have one film, two very special guests. So again, talking about the meeting with Tarquin Soul. Washroom Summit. What are Rain and Soul hiding? So, of course, they think I'm up to something, not realizing that Tarquin Soul actually doesn't like me. So there's that. And they are not happy with the bill I signed. So there's that. Alright, and the last thing we have is... Oh, okay, we have these two. We'll go ahead and do the briefing on the diplomatic strategy, and then we'll do dinner at home with my family. The doors to the White Room, like everything else in the Maroon Palace's main nerve center, were painted white. I took a deep breath before pushing them open. Time for yet another meeting. At least this time it was with people who liked me. The attendees rose up from their seats. Mr. President. Isoff nodded. He and Lucian sat down, while David remained standing. Now that you're here, let's talk about our diplomatic strategy. David cleared his throat. Mr. President, if I may, I would like to provide you with a short overview of where we are at right now. Nod and gesture for David to begin. We have successfully passed trade deals with both Wayland and Agnolia, which means we have increased our presence in those regions. These deals were important pieces of leverage and significant first steps into the global arena. We must now look towards the future. Go on. David sat down, pulled out a few papers, and started going through them as he kept talking. Wayland and Agnolia were practice runs. We must begin improving our relation with greater nations. We need to elevate our international standing, especially with the threat of Runeberg looming. Isoff cleared his throat. Thanks to your wise investments, Sworland Army is on its way to becoming a force to be reckoned with. Whether it be Runeberg or anyone else, we can handle outside threats just fine. We don't need to beg for help from anyone. Thank you for your input. I will consider it. A military perspective is important, but those deals are about more than just gaining allies. We also need to consider the benefits to our economy such deals will provide, especially when we are still struggling to end the recession. Naveed took a seat and brought out 2 stacks of documents. At the start of our term, I had a comprehensive trade deal plan laid out. Following the visit to Wayland and Agnolia, we were to pursue potential trade deals with 2 greater nations. Vogsland is one of them, or at least was. Unfortunately, a trade deal with them no longer seems possible. In Vogsland's case, given the country's territorial ambitions, our alliance with Agnolia was rather a slap in the face. Now, those commies won't be able to invade Agnolia without facing the might of the Swordish armed forces. It will make them think twice. True, but as a result, we won't be able to conduct a trade deal, let alone proceed with any diplomatic missions at the moment. Unfortunate. So much needless dispute over such a small item. Well, I'll just say, what done is done. Let's move forward. As you wish. I can't discuss Vogsland without bringing up our decree to embargo United Contana. Blacklisting the superpower leading the CSP was naturally going to anger one of the Alliance's most important members. We will not rely on anyone but ourselves. We can't really say that since we're relying on everybody right now. Sworland will never get closer to Vogsland. David looked me up and down before returning to his papers. As we stand right now, any kind of deal with Vogsland is simply out of the question. Moving on to Lesbia, our southern neighbor is one of the wealthiest countries in eastern Marcopa. A trade deal with them would be very beneficial, not just for our economy, but also for our regional and international presence. Not to mention that they are in the Arcasian sphere. Because we will be following through with our promise to lean westwards, his would also strengthen our voter base. Indeed, this deal could also be the first step in aligning ourselves with Lesbia, or maybe even entering Ado. Swordish will get to its rightful place within Ado. That would be the best outcome. That is it for the overview. As for the actual contents of the trade deal, the investment we have done in the Lauren region has yielded positive results. Lucien pulled out his small notebook and quickly flipped through the pages until he landed on the right one. Looking at my stats here, the investment helped increase coal output of the region. We now have a surplus, which makes an excellent resource for trade. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Need to know your decision before we can proceed. What should we do? Begin negotiations with Lesbia? Of course. Excellent news. I'll begin at once. That was all I had for today. Thank you for coming. Thank you, gentlemen. Isov saluted as we left the White Room. All right, that economy is starting to come up now. We're starting to get some positive results over here. Jesus Christ. Took long enough, but we're getting there. We're getting there. So, and if we can pull off this trade deal with Lesbia, that will help us out tremendously. And it would also give us it'll put us in a pretty good situation against Runeberg, because we're buffered here in the south and we'll be buffered in the north. And we have a pretty decent military. And on top of that, Lesbia, if I remember correctly, they had a military of like 800,000. So that will put us in a really good position. So starting to work out. Portal of Chavin gains new importance. So yeah, they're getting new importance because of the L1 high-speed railway that we implemented. And the recession is hitting the workers. And it probably didn't help that I turned around and put that tax on small businesses. So Wayland Trade Report. Okay, they're helping out with the agricultural upward trend in agricultural exports. Sorry. All right. And manufacturing industries are also celebrating the decreased production costs that have resulted from the uptick in importation of Wessex oil in the aftermath of Operation Bear Trap. So yeah, we're starting to see those benefits. In the news, what do we have? Isolated polio cases seen in Bergia. We're having a COVID pandemic. Great. Yep, polio cases explode in Bergia. Great. Guess we're going to be needing that budget pretty soon. Geopolitical. Rain will visit Lesbia for trade deal. So we'll be having that pretty soon. Nice. Unemployment greatly reduced in Morna. It has seen a 15% decrease in unemployment. That is wonderful considering how bad it was before. So our economy is starting to roar back. Hopefully we can keep on this path as well. Currency loses value against the Arcadian lira. Financial reports show the Swordish rent has steadily been slipping against the Arcadian lira. So yeah, that probably happened because we only have some trade deals, but we've not yet approached the all-time low reached during the Alfonso administration. And I'm pretty sure that happened purely because the emergency decree that we had. If we would have worked, if we had done things the way I would prefer to do it personally, it probably would have turned out much better. So, but again, I've had much worse. There was one time in one playthrough I had a budget of -8. It was terrible. So I haven't gotten into a depression yet, but yeah, I've been in a pretty bad situation. So yeah. All right, dinner with the family at home. I arrived home from work, hung my jacket up, and put my briefcase in the hall. I paused, awaiting my usual greeting from my wife and daughter. Dana was out at one of her after-school art classes. I remembered. But where was Monica? From the living room, I heard a muffled sob. I entered to find Monica sitting on the sofa, a letter in her hands and a look of despair on her face. Darling, what's wrong? Monica briefly rested her head on my shoulder, then handed me the letter. It's from the Department of Education. Frank's university exam results are in. Oh, shit. Oh boy, he failed, didn't he? Just read the letter. I looked at the page. Below Frank's name and address, his score was written. 435 points out of a total of 1,000. Jesus Christ. Well, shit. Yeah, it's pretty bad. That's really bad, actually. I was actually pretty good at taking tests. I mean, I dropped out of high school, but I passed the GED exam with flying colors, so Got a scholarship and free ride and everything. I just hated school. At the bottom of the letter, the word failed was stamped in red. All those years of effort, all those private lessons, all down the drain. Does he know the results yet? No, but he should be back from school soon. I just don't understand. Frank's a smart boy. Why would he sabotage himself like this? I heard a key turning in the front door. Frank stomped in and was about to go straight upstairs when he noticed us both in the living room. Mom, Dad, what's going on? Wait for Monica to start the conversation. Your exam results arrived today. Frank sat down and Monica handed him the letter. He started reading it. Oh, shit. Son, we're not angry at you. I need a moment. He went to the kitchen sink and washed his face. Don't do that in the kitchen. A moment later, he came back. I never thought this would happen. I'm so sorry. It's not the end of the world. Pretty close though, isn't it? Frank looked close to tears. Monica put her hand on his shoulder. It's going to be okay, but you really should have studied harder, Frank. I know. So what am I supposed to do now? Well, there's always military school, but you're the president's son. You still have options. Yes. Monica surprised me with her enthusiasm. If Alfonso could get his dim-witted son into Kings Hill University, I'm sure Whole Sword State would have room for a bright boy like Frank. It would be nice to have him closer to home. Whole Sword State would be amazing. A bunch of my friends are going there. I could still come home to do my laundry. No, I won't influence your life. You've got to live with what you've done. Jesus, I would never do that. You could also study abroad. With enough money, I could get you into Harvard in Arcadia. It's one of the best universities in the world. That sounds great, actually. Anton, I want him to stay in Swordland. Mom, I've got to get out and experience the world sometime. And in Arcadia, people might see me as something more than just the president's son. I still don't like it, but I understand. What do you think, Anton? I didn't actually know this was a route the last time. Huh. Interesting. Oh, and of course, as you can see, because we privatized everything, you have to actually pay for it. If you don't privatize it, then you don't have to. You could also send them to the United Contana, but in my case, that would be pretty bad. So I'm actually going to send him to Harvard. Yeah, I'm going to send him to Harvard. I'm guessing that's Harvard. It's been decided. I'll pay for Frank to go to Harvard. Thanks, Dad. Whole Sword State still would have been my first choice. Not only yours, but it's your call to make after the way I messed up. Monica let out a long exhale. What a day. Who's hungry for dinner? Monica disappeared in the kitchen. Disappeared to the kitchen, Frank to his room. I went to my office and began making some phone calls. And actually that keeps my wealth about what it was originally the last time I played. So I think I might have had slightly less actually. So yeah. All right, court strikes down Ursine versus Swordland. I have no idea what that was. I didn't read it. Ashroth Anniversary is going on. Let me see. Hero to some, enemy to others. And enough with the Blutish protests. Lechavin times are against that now, finally. Education privatization. Are our children doomed? And justice failed once again. So, yeah. Happy tidings. So, in the next episode, we will look at announcement of the Supreme Court's decision and the Supreme Court files Ursine versus Swordland dissent. The Supreme Court has filed an 8-3 dissent and closed the Ursine-Swordland case today. Chief Justice Hawker dismissed the concurrence of the Ministry of Justice, citing the Religious Harmony Bill doesn't prevent Blutish people practicing religion in any shape or form. Further press releases were made criticizing the words of Vice Minister of Justice. Blutish constitutional rights won't be in question for some times. All right. So yeah, in the next episode, we will deal with the announcement of the Supreme Court's decision. I don't know if that's about the decision. That's either one of two things. It's either about the decision that they had to deal with Franz Richter, or the decision in regards to this Ursine versus Swordling case or whatever. So that's what we will be dealing with, and we'll probably be dealing with Lesbia also. So if you like the video, and I just dropped my phone. If you like the video, like the video. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe. I have plenty of stuff in my library, and I have plenty of stuff on the way. So thank you for watching. See you in the next one.